Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Journey to Becoming a Head Coach. My name as always is Jeff Freeman, and welcome you all to another edition. Today's going to be a defensive day. Again, I've covered a lot of special teams. In fact, I've covered every special teams. I did some inside zone, outside zone, and fly on the last scheme-based episode. I might redo the inside zone one. Got a couple comments and a couple of things about maybe my lettering might have been a little too small. So I might redo that one, or specifically just focus on some inside, outside, just mainly some inside zone and some read principles with our RPO piece. So today I'm going to go over a bear front. Ran this a few years ago. I particularly, as a defense coordinator, I really enjoy the bear front. The original bear front, the 46 bear defense, wasn't really, a 4-6. We all know the stories. It wasn't really a 4-6. That was named after a player, and there was 4 down linemen and all that kind of stuff. I ran it out of a 3-3-5 look or a 3-5-3 look. Played a lot of different games with it. Tried to play some man, played some cover 3. Really tinkered with it and moved things around out of it to try and have as much fun and create as much chaos as I possibly could. So if we're in a tight end twins look, this is primarily what the base of the front looked like. So we had obviously our 3-0-3 covered up. Primarily these guys were B-gap defenders, but we could play games with them and pinch them if we want to, or just have them attack the guards. The premise was, at the time when we developed this defense and switched this, we're playing a lot of wing T and a lot of pulling guard teams. So they love to pull their guards, they do that. So we're like, well, forget that. We're not going to let you down block. We're not going to let you pull. We're going to make you do everything but that. So we wanted to take that away from them. So that was kind of the premise behind all that. And that's why we switched to it. And it worked out really well for us for a very long time. Obviously, you get very stretched on the edges because you got so many things on the interior. The edge gets really hard to defend. But again, you're making them do what they don't want to do. So again, our base look was they were attacking the B gap, preventing the guards from pulling. And yes, we locked up our Sam and Will backers a lot. They were still C gap defenders, and we wanted him to basically take away the C gap and harass the tight end. The tight end was not going to be permitted to down block, get to the Mike backer. The tight end was not going to be able to get a free release, any of that. And we ran that side of a base cover 3. So obviously we'd have our corners lined up like they were in cover 2 or man, and then they would bail to about 8 right as the snap was getting close. Same thing, they would bail. These guys were our field and boundary players. We call them hybrid players. We would have, especially on a naked edge like this, we would have them split with the apex, and then disco tech, shutter tech, whatever you want to call it, we would have them creep to about like a 4x2, and then they would read that tight end. That tight end's down blocking, he's coming off and sitting and help set the edge. It's kind of the same thing on this side. He would creep to apex and then read this tackle. If the tackle down blocked, he would help set the edge. If he got a pass drop, he would try to drop to the cover 2 and then sink and continue to sink until the flat was threatened. If the flat was never threatened, he would help obviously with any kind of deep game, whether it was a deep dig with a post or a corner. He would try to help with anything like that by continuing to dig, and he would not come up until, if there was a bubble, if that was caught, then he would come up and rally to the short. So base premise out of that, our Mike had to be one of our best players because he had to be able to go sideline to sideline, and we would move our free safety either to the strength, or we would move them to the strength of the receiver side. So if they were a really heavy tight end base team and that's where they like to run, we would slide him over there. If they were a really pass heavy team and the tight end was more of a blocking style, we would slide our free safety over there. Or, in this day and age where everybody's spread, if it was this look and they were in a true doubles type style, technically in our aspect, the side with the most receivers would be on this side because he could easily run a flare, he could run out, or he could motion out. So he would align to this side, to the 3 receiver side on there. Also, if they were a big inside zone team, then if they lined him in doubles, we could put him to the strength and say, okay, we're going to put you away from the back, and we're going to make you accountable more for the back or the quarterback. Again, a lot of teams, sometimes instead of using cross-keying with these backers, we did that for a long time when we were in our true 3-4. We did cross keying a lot, where we had our Mike and our Will cross key the whole time. So the Mike would have the A, the Will would have the Q. Well, out of this bare front, you can switch it, and you can have your Mike and your free safety do that. Instead, you can have the Mike, depending on where you want to set the strength with the free safety, you could go here, set him to the passing strength side, and say, okay, free safety and Mike, you're cross keying. Free safety, you're looking at the QB. Because if this Will crashes down with a down block and crashes and gives that QB a pull read, and the QB pulls, well, then your free safety can come up and have a free shot, and now you're pinning the quarterback between the free safety and your high mid player on any kind of inside zone pull. If he tries to hand it off, that tells your Mike he's in charge of the ace back. So if the A back comes across like a normal inside zone, now you have your Sam or your stud, your 3 defensive linemen, and your Mike backer. So you have these 5 against these 4 to get to him. So it gives you a numbers advantage. Again, weak points in it. Obviously, if they are able to get to the edge, it can give you some of that. RPOs, RPOs were not big when we put this in, because obviously now with RPOs, if these guys are cheating, and they cheat too far, and they got the basic bubble set up, then that's going to put us at a disadvantage. So our response to that was a little bit of cover 1. So we would literally go down and we say, okay, we're going to man everybody up. And we would drop into cover 1, and we would play games with that too, where these guys would shuffle in, come back out. Disguising was a big thing we were trying to get our defensive guys to learn, and just understand that, hey, you need to be able to disguise and move up and down and show them cover 2, cover 3, cover 1, play games with it. The free safety would have to move around and things of that nature. But we were able to really hurt the inside trap game, the power game, and the wing T buck sweep game by going into this bare front. Spread, we had to change some things around, and we had to make some maneuvers, and we had to adjust based on that, because obviously now what we also did was we said, okay, instead of putting them head up, we adjusted the bear to where they were just in double 3s, and then we could play games with the fielder boundary, and now we could align them more almost into a true, if we had this field and boundary here, we could have the Sam apex, we could have our Will be out, we could have our Mike and our Will here, and we could have our other free back, our Falcon Bandit or our hybrid head up, and now we could play games on this side, and we could drop into a cover 2 look if we really wanted to and play games like that. So we did have to make some adjustments for the spread just to kind of help us out, but again, we could still run that bear front, which again, I would also have to say, as far as just schematically, as an offensive lineman, as a former center, I always hated having a nose. Always hated having a nose there. And then also in this kind of front, when you play games like this, the read guy is pretty much gone as far as on the line. The read guy now becomes this backer right here. And that's how most teams would teach it. If you're going to do like a 3-4 or a 3-5, they're going to turn this guy into the read guy, and if he comes down hard, he's going to pull it, maybe throw it, or if he sits, then he's going to hand it off. So he becomes the new read man. But what I like about this is you kind of eliminate a lot of the double teams that what some zone individuals try to create now. Is they're like, okay, well, we want to create double teams. Well, you can't create double teams on an inside zone out of this except for this backside. This is your only double team you get. He has to be big on big, he has to be big on big, and if your Sam is your run defender and he comes and attacks, that's a one-on-one. So you only get one double team. My Mike gets to run free, my Will just has to worry about one double team, and we can easily cross key this to where my Mike has the A, my Will has the Q, we can cross key that, or if they're not a big running quarterback team, then we both just cue the A back, and we say, fine, we're going to let you go ahead and pull it because we're not afraid of you as a runner. We're going to make you run because we know you don't want to run. So little adjustments that we can play games with out of this, because again, if you have that, if you're in a cover 3 look, you have this covered, and you have that covered with your flat defender, and then you can play games where you drop him in the deep half, drop him in the deep half, or you can even just play again base cover 3, he can discotheque, shutter tech down, and then bail into the flat and continue to sync with these two. He's got deep third, he's got deep third, he's got deep third. So you're fine, and then same thing on this front. He can discotheque, shuffle tech, whatever you want to call it, show, flash, whatever. He can come down, and then as soon as the snap of the ball happens, he can just sync, 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 force a harder throw, and then again, look for the check down and rally. So little games, you can play with that. We also had some stunts out of this. We primarily would use pick, axe, and things like that. So like if we wanted to do axe or pick, we would kind of do axe would be our strong side, pick would be our weak side. That's what we kind of changed it to for many years. So axe would be the strong side. It would just be a stunt game between these two. And the axe game would always be him going first. When we did pick, the nose would go first on the weak side. So when we did the axe, his job was to run through this guard and get to the hip of the center and get right in here. And then his job was to just cut right around into this gap. And again, we used that on run, and we used it on pass as well, especially when I was able to put some of my faster defensive linemen in there. It really caused great confusion, especially with this Sam backer here. Basically, he could also be a fourth defensive lineman if you really wanted to. You could run a true 4-2-5 out of this and play games. This could be an end if you really wanted him to. So again, it's all dependent on your personnel, but I just feel like it gave us a lot of versatility and a lot of way where we can match our personnel and put people in the right positions. Because now we can play games where we brought him off the edge, and now we have a game here where if this guard doesn't go down, now our the center's in a poor position, not a really good angle to get to that tackle. And if the guard does go down with that tackle, now we've opened up a huge gap. And he can't necessarily step down to help with the nose because we have a decent angle on the edge. So he has to take that Sam backer or that stud backer. So lots of games we like to play. And again, the pick was just the opposite of that. And we would have our nose go first. So his job was to go through the center to the hip of the guard and get to there, and then he was to rip right through into there. So covering the backside A and the B by taking the center and the guard into the B gap. And again, if the center didn't go with him, he got right into this gap. If the center went with him, the tackle went around. This failed only when our nose was not athletic enough to really push the pile and get that center to come down with him. When he got that center to come down with him, both these gaps would close up, especially on a run to this side, whether it was inside zone, whether it was sweep, whether it was whatever they were trying to do, or a stretch, because obviously he would come down, there'd be nobody there, and so we would have one guy that would take up 3 because he would step back and he would take the nose with him, and we would cover up the A and the B, and then our tackle would have a free rein, because again, our other tackle is taking this guard into B gap. So he would end up with a free shot right up the gap, and as long as our Sam set the edge, we were golden. If everyone did their job, this set up the tackle to force the ace to either make a cutback, or we were getting a tackle for loss right behind this guard. Now, of course, that's always in a perfect world when everyone does their job. We all know everything's predicated on read, reaction, and execution. Alignment, assignment, and execute. So when it worked beautifully. When it didn't, we had gaps. But that kind of happens with any kind of offense or defensive scheme when you draw it up. So the only other thing we would do, especially if we saw that there was some quarterback that really liked to scramble, we stole this from the Indianapolis Colts. And that's only because I had a track star at defensive end. Literally, I would loop him all the way across the formation. So, and literally, we called it loop. So, out of this front, I would put him kind of on this end over here. He would be an end. I would line him up more in a 4 or 5 right up on that tackle. And we would slant everybody as hard as we could into the gaps. And then literally I would bring him right behind to go tack the quarterback. We stole that from the Indianapolis Colts. They used to run it when they had Peyton Manning and Dwight Freeney and all those guys. They would literally run this loop. And if the quarterback tried to step over here, he would have to now, because the pocket had moved. And again, got to have an athletic nose. And we would also shift this over, where we would go either weak or strong. So we would shift the nose, shift the tackle, shift the stud. to head up to really get those lanes. So to get him to now flurry over to this side, and he would never see our end coming because he would step up, see the pressure coming from here, try to bail out, and by that time he's now turning the corner and running right into him. So it was a fun stunt. We really only got to run it for a season because, again, we had a kid, he was a cross-country athlete. He was ridiculously fast. No matter how hard we ran him, he would never run out of gas. And literally he would just run a loop, and we would do it on passing downs only. It was a third down basically blitz or a stunt, which also was nice because, again, we'd only have to bring one backer, not two or three, to really put pressure. And again, we would move these guys over. So I would move our nose to about here. Again, he would be either head up to inside, tackle would be there, and our stud or sandbacker would be right there. And we would literally bring him into that A gap, bring him across the opposite A, bring him across the opposite C, and bring him all the way across and around. And again, I can't tell you how many times it worked. It was fantastic. I don't know, I haven't been able to run it since because I haven't found a defensive end that's fast enough to get around, nor have enough defensive linemen that have been athletic enough to get around. I mean, so we're talking 7 years since I've been able to run that. But it was a really nice variation we had. It really worked really well with the personnel we had. A couple other things we were able to do out of those stunts when we were able to run it. I had a little bit of a number system that I would play games with as well out of this bear style front. And what I mean by that is again, I could call everything was left to right. So if I called like a 53G, for example, he would be head up, our other tackle would be in a 3, and if I said G, then our nose would line up there. 53G. So it was just something to play games, and then this worked really well. Our nose actually got a pick. It was on a third down play. Got a pick on a screen play to the ace back. They ran a little screen. We ran what we call a Tex stunt, which is just the opposite of the pick or axe. So he would go first, and then he came out and around and ended up running into the ace back here, getting a pick and running down. Now, he would have scored, but this wonderful nose guard, who actually was probably more of a linebacker defensive end, but we were in pass rush mode, so I put in as many fast guys as I could. As he came around, he caught it, took off, right around the 10-yard line, decided to showboat a little bit, stuck his hand up, and got tackled by the quarterback. So, needless to say, he got a little bit of a chewing. I mean, yeah, we celebrated he got an interception somehow, but then at the very end I was like, dude, make sure you score. Come on. So, the bear front, again, for me, I enjoy the versatility it gives me, and the fact that, again, if I'm in a bear front, I'm automatically now saying that you have to run to the edge. You cannot run up the gut, and you cannot pull your guards. I'm not going to let you pull your guards, even though I know some people will say, well, this tackle has a free, has a free angle. That's fine. He can have that free angle because as long as he gets in that gap and sits, that guard's not going to get a free release. That's the only thing that kind of screws that up is we didn't do a lot of setting of the hands. A lot of people say, you got to set hands and sit in the gap. I told my guys, pinch and get through now. Get heels depth, get there. If you're pinching hard right on the outside of that guard, the guard can't pull and the tackle can't be fast enough to get down unless, of course, they're foot to foot. But if they're foot to foot, then we got to make an adjustment anyway. And at the same time, if we play the way we want to play, and we're in this style and this front, if he down blocks, now I have a free blocker on the will. So even though it's 5-on-5, the angles don't favor the offensive line. An offensive line needs leverage and they need angles to down block and pull. Otherwise, again, they got to run some kind of zone. They got to run some kind of zone scheme, some kind of stretch scheme. They got to get here, they got to reach, they got to reach, they got to reach, they got to reach. They don't have the angles to pull. And I'm sure, again, I would get some comments like, no, I can pull, I can get it done. And that's fine. Yeah, the last guy with the pen always wins. But I'm just saying what had helped us in the past and what worked really well as far as a run defense running the bear is this prevented a lot of the buck sweep, a lot of the trap, a lot of the down kick technique. It stopped a lot of that. It forced teams to run zone, run outside, run stretch, all that stuff. And it forced them to throw the ball. And again, if they beat us throwing, then they beat us throwing. But basically said you weren't going to beat us running. So we were able to play a lot of games with that. We did have one other variation, and we would call it strong and weak, where we would literally line up where we would have our nose, tackle, end or tackle, and then that kind of front, and we would leave that open. Mike would be here, Willie would be here, and we would bring sometimes the will just on a straight up will blitz and say blow up the guard. We did this against a couple teams that really like to run buck sweep, especially if they try to pull and they want to down block and they want to pull both their guards and things of that nature. Well then, okay, if he's blitzing through, he's either going to blow up the guard or he's going to follow the guard and make the tackle in the backfield if he has that ability to. If he's able to get there fast enough, he's either going to blow that guard up or he's going to get and make a tackle in the backfield. And we had a lot of success with that look too. And of course, we could play games with that. Obviously, we had the opposite. If we had strong, we had weak, and we could play games that way as well. And again, all the stunts were in there. The only difference on this, if we wanted to run a stunt out of this, we had a nose. Anything where we're trying to evolve a defensive end or an outside linebacker, we would call it text and exit. Text being the tackle first, exit being the end first. So again, same principles would apply. If we were running text, we were trying to get like a sack because we were trying to run it during a third down conversion because we were trying to get him outside and bring our faster lineman up through the gap and really get there quick and create some disruption. Exit could be run either one, but I kind of liked exit more as a run defense to really pinch that end in, especially against some zone teams, get them to bang or bend it out and get that tackle right out there on the outside. So I really liked exit against run. I liked text against pass. Again, my personal preference. Maybe some of you are like, no, I like it the other way around. Again, it's all opinion, whatever you think. Either one works as long as you execute. So that was the premise behind our bear. And the coverages we ran out of that, it was basically 1, cover 2, cover 3. And cover 2 primarily morphed because of spread teams. When people started trying to spread us out, we had to have the advantage. We had to be able to run some cover 2 out of it. So we had to be able to move some guys around and move them out. Otherwise, it was cover 3 and cover 1, and then maybe obviously just some 0 as well for goal line and things of that nature. Or we brought everybody down, especially in goal line. If they were a true goal line team and they had any kind of super, really up-built front, then yeah, we would bring a true goal line in, and we would submarine these guys. We would say, you know what, just cut them, take them down, take them out, create a pile, make them bounce it out. So our hybrids and then our Mike and our free safety can basically go downhill, scrape, and make a play. So it worked really well and that would be our red coverage, where we just said, okay, corners, you have last man, hybrids, you have next release, which obviously this could be a fullback or a wing guy if they had a wing. So again, and this we tell corners, you have outside route, hybrids, you have next route, anything like that. If they were trying to run any kind of double wing kind of look, double wing, double tight end, or maybe they would have more of a quarterback, fullback, ace back look out of that. So out of this, corner would take outside route, hybrid has any kind of check down that releases, anything of that nature. So again, played a lot of different games with it. I personally really enjoy the bear front. Again, my personal opinion, again, this is my personal opinion, if you're going to run bear, he's got to be a stud, he's got to be a stud, and your free safety, or whatever you want to call them, money, whatever. These 3 guys right down the middle of your defense have to be ridiculously good. If you're low or if you're not as talented in one of these 3 spots, then that's where you're going to suffer. If your nose can't control that center, they might be getting 2 or 3 yards. If your Mike isn't a very good scraper, then you might be suffering again 2, 3, 4 yard gains. And if your free safety can't adjust, then obviously we're going to have some coverage breakdowns and we're going to have some issues there. Free safety's got to be able to call the coverage, Mike's got to be able to call the defense, nose has got to be able to control the line. And that's just my personal opinion, and that's just kind of how I had installed it and run it at various levels from freshman to varsity. I always wanted my nose, my Mike, and my free to be my best players. My weakest players, corners, I could hide them, I could play games with them. My field hybrid guy, we always call him F and B. So, you know, field, force, bandit, you know, whatever you want to call him, boundary guy, field guy. We got into a field and boundary discussion about how that's how we were going to move these guys around. Field guy always had to be more of an athletic, best tackler, cover guy. Boundary guy was a force defender and a run defender on the short side, not the best pass kind of guy. He, as far as being in space, so we just kind of said, okay, well maybe he's the cover 2 guy that drops down in cover 2 because it's a shorter half of the field, so he's not as good as our field guy. We did drop our field guy into cover 2, but we tried to drop him a little bit more because we wanted him up for setting edge and making open field tackles. So we tried to drop our boundary guy more than our field guy, but obviously that doesn't always happen, and then plus that's a tendency if you always try to drop him first, so you always want to make sure you're able to drop everybody. That's always the other trick too, is trying to make sure that you don't have too many tendencies and get stuck with people trying to formation you into the boundary or trying to, you know, run to the short side all the time, and your best guys are always on the field side or always on the strong side, so they run weak. So trying to make sure that guys know both sides, or trying to make sure that guys understand where to move around, or if we want to make an adjustment and we want to move, if they're really playing a lot of throwing games over here and our bandit guy just can't do it, got to be able to flip them. And yeah, you're putting a weaker guy out there, maybe they catch on to that, but you might get 1 or 2 stops that you need just by making those simple adjustments. So again, at the bare front, that's my opinion. These 3 guys need to be stout. You can play games and move these guys around. And again, you can run it out of a 4-2 look if you really want. These guys can be true defensive ends. And actually what we used to call them, he would be the nose, anchor would be our strong side or our 3-tech, our end would be our play side run guy, and then our force would have been our best pass rusher. So, I mean, you can play games with that and have it more like a true 4-2 look. And again, that's who would be your Sam backer or your stud backer. And then your Willie, obviously, depending on where you want to line him up, if you're running a true bear, then your Will could be out there. And you're running that type of style or that game with that. And again, if they're running a true, you know, they're running with, you know, tight end twins look, then running a tight end twins look on that front, then obviously you can play games because you can have your field and boundary guy out on this edge, you can have another field and boundary guy out on this edge, and then you got your corner and your corner. And again, depending on what they like to do, if they like to throw to that side, they like to throw and use these 3, you can set him to that side. If they're using this as run, you can set him to that side and play games on that front as well. But again, now he's more of a true defensive end, and he just follows the tight end. That's one of those rules we used with the stud or the end. If he was a stud, he followed the tight end. So that kind of told these 2 what to do. So these guys were field and boundary. These 2 guys were strength. So that's where we kind of tried to make sure we accounted for the adjustments of formation into the boundary, or if they try to catch us, then, I mean, if this is the field side and this is the hash right here, yeah, he's on the field, he's on the boundary, but they try to formation us into the boundary and say, okay, yeah, no, we're going to make sure that you put, you know, some of your best guys over there. Well, fine, we got our stud over here, we have our end on this side, or our Will on this side. We're fine. We have a backer, we have a stud. Those guys are flipping with the strength, but you're not going to catch our field and boundary guy. So we had a field and boundary, and then we had a strength with our backers. And sometimes, I will admit, we did end up flipping it to where we just said, okay, you know what? Stud, you're always going to be with the field. Will, you're always going to be with the bandit. Especially if they did try to play games like this and then shift and move people over, and we didn't want to get caught shifting. Then we just said, all right, Stud and Falcon, you're on the same side. Bandit and Will, you're on the same side. And that could have been week to week and a week adjustment. But those are some adjustments we did make to account for any kind of formation in the boundary, any kind of shifts, any kind of motions, anything like that. So again, the bare front, I personally enjoy it. I like it. I think it's a really good defense, especially if you have these 3 players. You can get away and mask everybody else, but again, you got to make sure you control the interior, and you got to make sure you got really good tacklers on the edge and a really good scraper in the middle. So that's my take on the bear front, out of some different formations, how we lined up against the spread, how we lined up against just normal tight end type style of sets. Again, I appreciate all the love and all the comments and things like that. I'm going to cover COVID Part 3 on Tuesday. And to be brutally honest, we are almost to the end of at least where I think, as far as the journey that I've had so far and where I'm at. So I'm thinking there might be only a couple more videos left for the head coach journey piece. But I'll cover COVID Part 3, which is really going to cover September through December. And then I might make one more called COVID Part 4 as far as where we're at now and what we're looking at. It's not looking very good. It's looking pretty bleak for us out here in California. I could be wrong, but right now it's looking really bleak, so we'll see what happens. But that's kind of where we're at. So I'll tell you about where I'm at, things I'm planning for, because the interesting part about this is not only do I have to still be in mid-season or in-season game preparation, but we also have to be in off-season, spring ball, summer ball, staffing, fundraising preparation. So we kind of have to combine all the three phases that I've talked about, where you got off-season, spring ball, and then in-season. Or sorry, for us, it's really off-season, spring ball, summer ball, in-season. We kind of have to combine all those together for the next month and a half, 2 months, depending on how much longer everything goes. Because right now we're in January. Our season's supposed to be over in April. We'll see what happens from there. But yeah, the slate at the end of the season's April 9th. But we have a lot of our spring and winter programs that are starting up this week as well. Because for those of you that don't know, basically baseball and some of our other track and field and cross country and swim, they can basically participate now in the purple tier. And football has to wait till orange, soccer has to wait till orange, volleyball has to wait till orange, and so does, and then basketball and wrestling have to wait till yellow. So with kind of these things still sitting in a purple tier, some counties you might be able to have a season. Right now in our county, we're still pretty deep into purple at the 60 plus margin per 100,000, and we're in the high teens for the positivity rate. So I don't know if we get out of there or if we get low enough to really have any semblance of a season. So again, give you an update on what happened between September to December, give you an update of where we're at now. So those are the next 2 episodes, and then after that, the head coach journey series might be at its completion. Next week I'll probably cover some more offensive stuff. Like I said, I'm going to take a look at that inside zone video one more time and really see if I want to tweak it. I go over some inside zone. Again, if you got anything you want me to go over, offense, defense, special teams, probably going to go over some 4-3 stuff, some true 4-3, 4-2 when we get into the oncoming weeks for some defense. Special teams, I haven't really decided what else I want to cover on that yet. But again, hit me up in the comments below. Let me know. Thank you all so much for your support. Be great, push limits, hold the line. Have a great weekend.